Hello and welcome to Freedom from Fear, a German New Medicine podcast. I'm your host, Ashlee Newberry.
And I'm your other host, Abigail Puccioni. Please be aware that nothing discussed here on this podcast should be taken as medical advice.
Consult your trusted professionals and your own inner knowing before making any health decisions.
Blame it on the glyphosate. Blame it on the glyphosate. Welcome everyone back to, I don't know what episode we're on, but welcome back to Freedom from Fear. And today we're going to talk about glyphosate and poisoning in general, and as one of the three exceptions in German New Medicine, and what the nuance of poisoning versus tracks or conflicts with certain things is, because that can get a bit confusing and sometimes lost in translation. But we're excited to have you here, and stay tuned for future social media reels with the new song that I'm putting together.
I can't explain how excited Ashlee was about this episode, mostly because she came up with the title in one of our very first planning sessions for the podcast.
True.
And she was like, we have to do an episode with this title. So this is all coming to fruition. This episode is going to be all about exploring not just the three exceptions in GNM, but one of those three exceptions, the topic of poisoning. What is a poison in the GNM view? And I know that this is a very hotly debated topic in the GNM world, and of course in the holistic, health realm at large. There's a lot of emphasis on toxins and poisons, and a lot of people, even in the GNM world, that I would say view a lot of things as a poison that personally, and also Ashlee, that we don't necessarily believe should be counted as true poisons, at least in certain doses. Of course, there's a saying that the dose makes the poison, which I think is very applicable here. So we're going to dive into this topic and share a little bit about our unique perspective on this. Now, keep in mind that people in the GNM world, there's no one right way of thinking about this. Okay, we want to make this clear that this is our perspective of this, our understanding based on what makes the most sense for us. So keep that in mind, because, if this doesn't resonate, and if you believe that more things are poisons than what we do, that's totally cool too. A lot of people have different perspectives on this, and I just want to make that clear. I know it can be a little confusing and a little scary to navigate, wondering is this thing really bad for me, or is it not? Should I feel peace about it, or should I feel a little afraid about it and avoid it? And I think that's a really big giveaway right there. The whole peace versus fear debate, right? Which we always like to emphasize. But yeah, just to get us started, I think that, this topic of poisoning, it's so loaded, primarily because of all of the noise and the holistic health industry about toxins and stuff that's, unnatural and bad for your body. And I feel like the holistic health perspective is slowly merging perhaps more and more with the mainstream, because I know a lot of people that are, pretty just into conventional medicine and not even in the holistic realm. And they're starting to use all the same buzzwords, talking about EMFs and talking about, glyphosate and talking about mold toxicity, right? And I think even a lot of doctors are starting to pick up on all this. And, I actually lived in Europe for a few years in my early 20s in Italy. And I know a lot of people like to say how, I had all these gut issues when I lived in the States because of the horrible food quality in the States. But then when I moved to Europe, or I went on vacation in Europe, I could have all the gluten my heart desired, and I was totally fine because it's cleaner, right? Because it's not, tainted with all this bad stuff. They don't use all the pesticides and all the chemicals and, the standard American diet, the SAD, what does that spell? SAD, the SAD, so standard American diet, like, my gosh, people really love to crap all over the way Americans eat, which, touche. I see some truth in that, to be honest. But,
Yep.
we want to really emphasize here that what we are talking about when we debate this topic of toxins and poisons is the claim that being exposed to toxins directly relates in symptoms. We are not saying that exposure to certain things is biologically natural or even optimal, or that it, is not important in living an overall healthy lifestyle. I think that, of course, I am a fan of eating organic food when possible and, shopping, at smaller local grocery stores or purchasing from local farms, knowing where my food is grown, food that has not been treated with, the chemicals and all that, right? I think that food tastes better. And that's also a big part of the reason I choose that. But I think it's really important to notice the distinction between a food, or I should say the toxins, the chemicals on the food causing symptoms or being a cause of, different diseases or health related issues versus, maybe eating a whole lot of this, food that's been treated with this stuff maybe isn't the best for my overall, well-being, health, and resiliency. And we'll get into this nuance in just a little bit, but this is kind of the main, heart of the discussion. And the nuance that we're trying to get at is that the toxins do not cause health symptoms, because for something to be an exception in GNM, and this is how Dr. Hammer described it, it would have to affect everyone equally. Yep. Right. So, you have a lot of people that are, running to get the amalgams, like the mercury, fillings, whatever, taken out of their mouths because, this is the cause of my XYZ chronic symptoms. Right. Yep. Or, I need to switch over to all organic because this is what's causing me a breakout in rashes is the glyphosate, or, I don't know, name another example, Ashlee.
Well, yeah, like I need to switch over to a saltwater pool because the chlorine is, giving me rashes or, making my eyes red and watery. And we're not saying that maybe that is still true, right? That's still your experience. But in order for that to be an all across the board, this affects everyone, based on a weight and how many conflicts you have and stuff. It's it's a little more complicated, but
there are some variables.
But in order for it to be categorized as a poison, it has to affect everyone the same, including those variables, and it just doesn't, right? It just you see one person, and I'm actually I'm a little bit more lax about my diet. Since learning German New Medicine, I'm like, like food is not evil. Food is not the problem. And it has helped me so much. It actually enjoy my relationship to food and things in general. I have a pool in my apartment and it's filled with chlorine. During the summer, I swim in it every day. I sun every day. And it's awesome. It's amazing. I love it. And, if I had a saltwater pool super accessible, sure, that would be great too. But the chlorine filled pool is great. And I don't have any qualms about it because I know that I'm going to be okay, that I am okay. And whatever exposure I'm having, my body can handle. And I'm not even thinking about all of that. How you get into this mindset of just being able to let things go is you're just focusing on, am I enjoying this? Am I having fun? Am I enjoying the experience of eating this thing or swimming in the pool or whatever that looks like for you? Because that's honestly going to help you kind of let some of these maybe neurotic tendencies go, because it's no longer an issue for your psyche, right? But we're not saying that, and go listen to our last episode about tracks. We're not saying that if you have a response to something, whether it's food or chlorine or whatever else, that's not happening or something, like. But that's
yeah,
a
they
track.
can be tracks.
Yeah, exactly. That's not a poison level. But if we're all to drink a bunch of rat poison, we're probably going to be less than ideal effects, or maybe die, because it's meant to kill rats. But drink enough of it and it's probably going to kill humans, so.
Right. And I know a big thing that's thrown at is this, like, fill in the blank toxin causes cancer. I mean, that's a really big one right now. I think that even the conventional medicine industry is kind of starting to kind of get on board with that, but I know that that's definitely coming from more the holistic realm. But a really big thing that I hear is EMFs cause cancer, and again, I'm not saying that the EMFs are amazing and you should just go and, have a cell phone to your head 24/7, right? I'm not saying that, but do they actually cause cancer? Through a G&M perspective, they do not. There's a specific several different biological conflict shocks that would lead to several different specific kinds of cancer. Mm-hmm. That is what initiates that program in the body. And so again, I'm not saying that the EMFs and mold and toxins, different things could not perhaps be not so great for our overall health and resiliency, and maybe weaken our overall level of health to the point where we are more susceptible to certain conflict shocks. I think that that's certainly plausible. But look at people who live next to really big cell towers. Okay, maybe there are a few people, a slightly higher rate of people who get cancer, perhaps, but not every single person living in that area that's, same age, same weight, similar, right? Similar health, overall health, right? They're not all getting cancer. So, or at least
and
not the
all
same types of
kind,
cancer.
Even if they are. Yeah, exactly.
Right. One person breast cancer, one person testicular, one person ovarian, you get the picture. So I think another really great example of this is, I read something, this popped up on social media a few weeks ago, and it was, again, someone in the holistic realm that, doing the fear mongering that they tend to do. Probably, I'm not saying they do this consciously, but it was basically a reel talking about how airline pilots and flight attendants are more than 2 times as likely to get diagnosed with melanoma, with different types of skin cancer. And so we know that melanoma is actually a type of attack conflict, right? So from the G&M perspective, think about why that might be. Think about flight attendants dealing with,
angry people,
some angry people, and hurling insults at them, or, people not being happy with the flight crew, and, some different, I would say they're more likely to experience attack conflict like situations, right? So I was very interested though in seeing the statistic, because the person was saying this thinking, well, it's obviously because of radiation, and
yeah.
I'm like, well, to me, that's not all obvious. There are a lot of people who fly on a very regular basis and never get, melanoma or any kind of cancer, right? So I think that another really big point that we want to bring up here is, think about the difference. Try to, if this seems a little hard to just accept right off the bat, that's fine, but just try to think about the implications of moving through life with a certain set of belief symptoms that the world is out to get you. Or what did I say? A certain set of beliefs. Did I say symptoms? I feel like I messed that up somehow. But anyway, moving through life with a certain set of beliefs about the world being an unsafe place, full of external baddies out to get you. There's the EMF, there's the cell tower there. Ooh, that's bad. I hate it. I wish it was not there. Getting on the plane. I mean, my gosh, I know some people in the holistic world that they will wear EMF, they will cover their body in EMF protective clothing, right? They will wear EMF protective hats, have, the EMF protective cases on the cell phones. I mean, all the above, right? And they won't walk through the scanner, I used to be one of those people, by the way, just full transparency. And I can't tell you how freeing it is to be able to walk through an airport and just walk through the scanner, not do anything special, not pack all my own food, not wear special clothing or special cases on my phone, to just go through an airport. I mean, it's not like I fly every day, but like, just to have that experience of not being afraid of everything in my environment. Can you imagine the effect that being afraid of everything in your environment has on you? That is the real toxin. That fear is the real toxin. And I think that that's what we're trying to illustrate. It's not that we're saying, oh yeah, just go crazy, eat McDonald's every day, expose yourself to all these toxins all the time. Like, yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know if I'd want to live right by a cell phone tower or not. I mean, again, I think that probably EMF exposure and certain toxin exposure is not great for like overall health, but I certainly do not have the belief anymore that thing, any external thing, is going to cause a symptom, because as Ashlee was saying, it would have to affect everyone equally, right? So why, or, say, a certain toxin, it causes health issues in a, great number of people, but they all have different symptoms. We have to look at like why that is. And just because there's a correlation with something does not mean causation.
Exactly.
And I feel like I feel like we shouldn't even have to like really talk about that. I feel like that should be very obvious, right? But I think especially in the holistic community and, conventional medicine community as well, there's a lot of belief that, if something's correlated, well, that's the cause. So I think that, there's a lot to unpack here, but it definitely goes back to, what do you want to believe about the world around you?
Yeah. And how can you help yourself with those beliefs so they're serving you? And so they're contributing to your enjoyment of life and living and not be so afraid, right? Because then we can also look at people that live very mainstream, right? People that haven't really, dove into the holistic realm at all. They have a lot less qualms about a lot of stuff. I mean,
I can tell you.
Yeah, go ahead.
My husband is a great example of this. Hopefully he won't mind me talking about him, but he is like one healthy guy. He's one resilient guy. I tell you what, sometimes it shocks me what he eats for breakfast. He will eat like a little thing of fruit juice and then like a chocolate bar or something, like a little candy bar. Like that is, and also I will say in Italy in general, people love to say, oh, yeah, the food's so much better there, which I will say that the quality is way higher. They do grow, the way that they cultivate food is done much more biologically. I give them that, but they eat basically just sugar for breakfast, right? They have like a pastry, like a cappuccino, but I mean, there's no protein in sight, which to me is just completely mind-boggling. And so anyway, but yeah, he's Italian. I should throw that out there. And he loves to eat his little sweets in the morning. That's his breakfast. He eats, I would say, fast food pretty much every day for lunch. I mean, Jimmy John's or Chick-fil-A, or I mean, you name it, and he's like living his best life, has no chronic symptoms whatsoever. I can count on like one hand the number of times that I've seen him like sick, or in a healing phase. So, but why? He is on it. He has his 2 cell phones in his pocket all the time. He's totally fine, totally healthy. He's not afraid of it. He doesn't think about that. He doesn't, he hasn't dealt with the fear that I have in my past of being all caught up in the, the fear of toxins realm, right? He didn't have that experience, and he is probably the most chilled person you'll ever meet. I mean, he does not experience conflict shocks like I do either, because of his perception of the world. And he doesn't view the world as like a scary, messed up place out to get him, like I do. So I just wanted to point that out, and the difference, because I have lived so like, especially for, before discovering GNM, my gosh, I mean, air filters in every room, totally organic, eliminated all toxins from makeup and cleaning products, and, you name it. completely neurotic about it also. Just really, I mean, EMF, shields all over. I have this little device in the house, so like, I don't know, frequency, whatever. Like, I mean, I went completely nuts with it. And, obviously this was coming from the root of that was fear, right? Thinking that, oh, I can fix my chronic symptoms if I can just control my environment tightly enough, and again, the focus is on all the external stuff outside of me. Meanwhile, my husband, perfectly great health, doesn't think about any of that, right? Eats whatever he wants, has never had like anything close to resembling a food sensitivity. Yet here I am, trying to so tightly and perfectly control everything. And I was riddled with chronic symptoms.
Well, and that's interesting that you bring up like controlling the environment, right? Because, as a person is learning German medicine, it becomes so much less about the external environment compared to the internal environment, right? So like controlling these things outside of ourselves that sometimes we have no control over, including, other people, or traffic, or somebody cuts you off, right? Or just these, other things that we don't have control of. And learning how to, quote, control the environment, but within yourself, so that massive chaos, maybe you can be exposed to mold, glyphosate, EMFs, you can have all of this interaction with these, poisons or toxins, but you're still okay because within yourself, that you're fine, that you're going to be okay, that you're fine and safe in this moment, and that you're going to be safe, right? I'm a lot less, like I was saying, I'm a lot less strict on what I eat and what is in my environment. Actually, the air filter I have, I need a new one, and so it's just off, and it's been fine, right? It's just like sitting there, I can see it. And I just keep forgetting to get a new filter. And I'm also just kind of like, do I really need this? Like, maybe not. For me, sometimes some of those things, for me personally, because I live in an apartment, is more about the smell. And I just want my home to not smell like other people's homes, or like if they're smoking cigarettes or weed or something. But it is interesting to notice, right? When you look at a person and how they are interacting with their environment and trying to control so much, that's usually the people that have diagnoses of, cancers or other like chronic things, rather than someone, who's in their 90s and smokes cigarettes every day and, drinks a shot of whiskey at dinner, and they're fine because their internal environment, they don't have any qualms about it. And so I didn't go through all the holistic health stuff as much as you did, Abigail. I kind of went right from Western medicine into GNM. There was a little bit of transition, but I didn't have as much of the fear mongering and stuff, and I didn't get into GNM because of chronic symptoms necessarily. It was more,
conventional medicine has a whole different form of fear mongering.
Yeah, exactly. But everything is toxic, everything is poison. I didn't really ever have that experience, so it is. I know that it is easier for me to not have that be a factor sometimes in my decision making. And yes, Western medicine, right? It's the fear mongering is more about germs and spreading things, right? Which is a whole other thing, rather than the toxins, right? But both paradigms, both the Western medicine and the holistic realm, there's something outside of me that I have no control over, my genetics, this germ, this toxin, this EMF, this thing in my environment, right? There's all of these, as you call them, external baddies that are out to get me, whatever that looks like. And learning German medicine and applying it you realize that is all that is all able to be shifted within your perception, right? Like, it doesn't mean that like eating well, taking care of yourself, getting enough sleep, right? You think about even daylight savings that happened this past weekend. Sunday, I was a mess because I was like, why does my body feel so weird? Because we lost an hour of sleep, right? And I was like trying to get up earlier. And it 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 really like just messed me up a little bit mentally for the start of the day. And I'm usually a really good sleeper, but when I don't get sleep, it definitely affects me, right? Or you think about your kids when they don't get their nap time in, they can be extra emotional or like extra kind of sensitive to things. And that's when we have conflict shocks. So the same thing
Right.
is true, right? Like what's the toxic load, and not seeing everything as a toxin or poison, but like supporting yourself, right? And especially in healing phases, the only dietary recommendation that Dr. Hammer recommended was eating more protein in the healing phase, because we need more of those building blocks to help either rebuild the tissue that was lost or break down the tissue you no longer need. And having more protein is going to support that and help you get through it smoother, maybe quicker, and just more easily. And right, to eat more biologically, but also within that context, right? Like, how can you let go of the fear that if you don't eat perfectly clean, or, you know, you wear polyester, like, that's one of my
some
like
people
biggest
have gone
things.
so far into even the clothing that you wear has to be non-toxic, because well, it touches the skin, it'll permeate the skin barrier,
Which, we're not saying that that's not true, right? Like that there is truth to that. But like, I love cheetah print, okay? And I may start a cheetah print, organic cotton line or something in the future.
There
but
you go.
It's really hard to find cheetah print in non-polyester blended clothing. Like, because I've looked, and so maybe if anyone listening to this, has a good suggestion. But the funny thing is, this my threshold for changing something in my life since learning this information and just working on self-awareness throughout the years, what is my experience, right? So even with the polyester, just because it's a funny example, the reason why I want to switch to more linens and cotton is not about toxins for me personally. It's like, I live in Texas, it's hot here, and polyester kind of traps the heat and just makes me more hot and warm, and I get sweaty. And so for me, like, switching to more, natural fibers is like, they're just more breathable.
Right.
I don't really care that polyester is plastic. Like, I don't at the core of the decision, because I get so much enjoyment. Like two of my favorite pairs of pants are cheetah print, and they're both polyester. And I wear these pants all the time. I love them. And so for me, it's like, I get so much enjoyment out of wearing the clothes that I love and I feel good in. I really have never thought about the fact that they're polyester until like in the last year, when, I don't know, some friend brought up about, natural fiber stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But I still don't care. And the only reason I've been recently thinking about switching to more natural fibers is just because I run really warm, and Texas is really hot in the summer. But, so how are you making these decisions to switch? Are you going more towards what you want and how you want to feel, how you want to support yourself? Or are you trying to run away from what you don't want? The toxins, the poisons. Oh, this is bad for me. This is bad for me. This is bad for me. Like, pay attention to those patterns with things, because that is ultimately going to serve you, going towards what you want. So it doesn't mean that we're saying like, oh, just eat junk all the time and you're going to be fine. I mean, if you don't really have qualms about it, you're probably going to be fine.
Mm-hmm. And
um
I love
yeah,
that
go ahead.
example because I think that that's such a beautiful way to highlight the difference in doing something because you're focused on what you want and because you want to feel cooler, right? You
Yeah.
know, you want to feel good and that versus, oh, I need to ditch this and ditch and switch to something because of the
Yeah,
toxins, because out of
exactly.
fear, right? And so I think that that's like the main point. And also I just want to highlight that fear is what sells. Okay. And so, you know, why has this really exploded in the holistic health world also? Is that, and also why are so many farms like rushing to get the organic certification? Because it sells. You know,
Yep.
it's not because they, oh, yeah, we realize that it's more biologically natural and we just want to do things the right way. You know, they're not necessarily all small local farms. Like I'm all about going to a small local regenerative farm and getting my food. I love that. I love knowing where my food comes from. That's more of a like an ethical thing for me, like going back to our roots of like how,
Yep.
you know, living more biologically, right? It's not because I'm afraid of the toxins that's been, you know, sprayed on the food in the grocery store, right? And also, I love my body. I want to support my body. Why not give my body the highest quality food out there, you know,
Yep.
if I can afford it? And like, I think that that's also a big distinction. Like, okay, well, you know, toxins, I'm sure that on some level they are affecting your overall health and resiliency. So if I can do what, you know, I can do what's, you know, feels easy to do, right? What I'm
Yep.
capable of doing, you know, at any given season of life, right? You know, if I'm able to buy 90% of my food from my small local farm, you know, I also like supporting them, then I
Well,
want
and
to do that.
whether it has the organic label or not, usually even those
Right.
small farms or going to farmers markets
Sure.
can even
They
be
don't, yeah,
better than,
right.
getting organic at the grocery store. But
Yeah, my small local regenerative farm does not have like the organic label or anything, but they do grow their food in that way. But I'm just explaining how the organic label that you see at the supermarket, they pay a lot of money for that. There's a lot of regulation that goes into that, you know, there and I guess what I'm trying to communicate is not all of those foods are necessarily being grown in a way that's very biologically natural. They're just under a certain threshold, right? So
yep.
I'm trying to highlight though how this is an industry and people are really profiting off of the fear of toxins. So of
Yep.
course it's going to be amplified and you're going to see all these, you know, correlations being drawn between this and cancer and that and cancer, or, you know, insert any other disease or chronic symptom or whatever. But you know, people are the EMF protective, you know, devices stuff. Companies are making a lot of money. What else? What else was I gonna say? Detoxes. Yeah. Well, I
Oh,
mean,
yes.
that's a huge one. If you can convince people to be really afraid of like, you know, toxins, then it will be easier to sell them a detox, right?
Yep.
That's a huge industry, one that I actually used to be a part of. And yeah, that was definitely subconsciously part of my strategy was to get my clients to understand how bad and scary these toxins were. And this is really why you should buy this detox, you know? And not just, you know, regular functional medicine detoxes, but then specific types of detoxes for heavy metals and, you
Ooh.
know, for all these sorts of things. You know, I mean, there's detox protocols for glyphosate and, you know, and it, I mean, it, you know, stopped resonating with me, I would say before I found GNM actually, but learning GNM was kind of the final piece of the puzzle. And also where I zoomed out to see this larger pattern happening in the world, like, wow, they're really profiting off of this. Not that
Mm-hmm.
that's bad in and of itself, but when you see the incentive for the fear mongering,
Yep.
same thing with, you know, the pharmaceutical industry, right?
Yep.
When you see the financial incentive behind the fear mongering, you start to kind of, you know, put the puzzle
Question.
pieces together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to emphasize the fact fear is what sells. And also, I believe that the harm of restricting yourself, the harm of avoiding things and buying the air filters because you're afraid of the air quality or whatever, I think that the harm of that outweighs any actual harm coming from physical particles.
Yep.
I'm not saying that those physical particles are amazing to, you know, breathe and inhale all the time, or that they're the most supportive to be, you know, to have the most vibrant, you know, and resilient overall health and wellness. I'm not saying that, but I think the harm of restricting and the harm of the fear far outweighs it.
Yep. And that's really, you know, what our intention is with this episode, and in general with this podcast, is what are your beliefs about the thing you're doing or eating or whatever? Like what is underneath the actions and behaviors that you're doing in your life? And that honestly is more important sometimes than the actions or behaviors themselves, because your subconscious and your core beliefs about the world, yourself, other people, you know, like Abigail was saying, like, is it safe in the world? Like, that influences how likely you are to get a conflict shock, you know, way more than, you know, if you're eating McDonald's.
Yeah.
Because,
or how likely something is to become a track. That can also influence, like, you're way more likely to have mold be an actual real track for you if you have certain beliefs about mold, because it's influencing your perception.
Yeah. I mean, right now I need to clean my shower, but I live in an older apartment building and there's mold in my shower, and
oh, no.
I'm fine.
Ashlee.
Like, I'm so fine. And sometimes I'll look at it and just kind of like laugh to myself. And I'm like, you know what? I probably need to clean my shower. But I'm also like, maybe another time, you know? And it's fine. I mean, it's not like I'm bathing in like a whole bathtub of mold or something. Just thinking about that, I'm like, but I know I'm okay. And I have not been primed for some of those beliefs. Like, other people have gone through the holistic system more than I have.
Right.
But right, like we're trying to convey that it doesn't mean that everything is meaningless, and that, you know, just doing whatever and eating whatever and doing, you know, like, it doesn't mean that that's necessarily going to serve you, but seeing it from this place of what is serving me and what isn't, versus, I need to be scared of this thing, is a vastly different outlook. And it's okay to eat like whatever you want. I mean, it's not necessarily about what the actual food is, right? It's about
it's about the mindset.
Exactly, your interaction with it, and
your beliefs about it,
and how you're perceiving it. Are you in a calm environment? Do you like just take a second before you eat? Or are you always eating when you're stressed, you know, maybe on your phone, you're in the car driving? And so how can you set yourself up for success to also not have maybe so many tracks, right? Even if you have been primed for those beliefs about certain things being bad, like, let's say for me that mold, you know, I was trying to work through a mold track, right? And I have some mold in my shower right now. Like, I could still set myself up for success by taking some time, just like I would before eating, and like, okay, it's safe to shower in my shower, and like, I'm safe and okay, right? And that's the biggest thing with resolving any of these things, is how can you get yourself to a place of safety and peace about whatever that thing is going to help you so much more than, okay, I need to get this toxin out of my life, this poison, you know, because we also don't have control over every single moment, and we could be, you know, exposed to something and then still, you know, have a symptom because it's still a trap. So
I think a big thing to keep in mind too is just that, you know, recognize your body is so resilient, and also recognize that, okay, other person over here, say my neighbor, you know, eats whatever, has all the regular cleaning products, does not attempt to like lower toxic load and whatsoever. and they're totally fine and healthy. Like, I think when you're viewing things from this new lens, this new framework way of thinking, you'll start to recognize that, oh, look at their personality, how chill they are about life. Are they a very highly conflict prone person or a not very conflict prone person? You can start to pick up on this, and you can start to see, okay, who has the chronic health issues? Kind of what have they been through in their life? What makes sense, right? Look at their overall, kind of health and resiliency. And of course, some people are going to be more sensitive to toxic exposure based on, if they have a really high conflict load and they're, again, they're having a lot of chronic conflicts in their life, and depending on their perception, yeah, they can definitely be more prone to having a conflict around, a certain substance, or, that substance kind of, again, I think it works both ways, kind of lowering their overall, resiliency. But yeah, just to kind of like wrap things up, I think that the two main points here is that, one, toxins can affect your overall health, and we're not saying that they're that they don't affect that, right? I think that reducing your toxic load in a way that's centered around peace and, focusing on, okay, I want to do what I can to just make myself as healthy as possible, and I want to focus on wellness and optimizing that. I think that that's totally different than avoiding things out of fear. So I think focusing on, okay, I want to eat, food that comes from a local farm because it makes me feel good. It tastes better. I like supporting local farms. I want to live more biologically, right? That's a totally different energy than, I need to find a farm that doesn't spray their food with this and this because, this causes cancer. Like, that's what we're trying to get at here, that nuance that, you can want to, perhaps lower your toxic exposure. I don't know, wear an EMF, put an EMF case on your phone or something like that, right? Like something that's, not really going to cause you any stress or really affect, your quality of life or your freedom, in any way, but, something that's easy to do. I think that that's totally valid, but just focusing on the fact that, okay, this is to boost my overall health and resiliency, and this feels good, this feels right, versus I need to avoid the bad, scary thing, or, oh no, I don't want to take an airplane flight without all my protective gear because, oh no, the scanners are attacking me, the plane's attacking me, all this radiation. Oh no, like, that's not going to be a helpful, headspace to be in, because I've been there and I can tell you that does not lead anywhere good. I have a lot of tracks around airports for that reason, I think. But yeah, so yeah, toxins can affect overall health and resiliency. They're not biologically natural for sure, especially man-made substances, stuff that's been made in a lab, right? But however, toxins are not the direct cause of symptoms. They are not a root cause. I think that's our main takeaway message. Because they don't affect everyone equally.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for listening. And we are, excited to hear your feedback and your questions, which you can submit to us either on the podcast directly or reach out to us on social media. And we will see you next time.
Bye, guys. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. We appreciate you being here.
If you would like some additional support in navigating your health symptoms, we both provide coaching services from a German New Medicine perspective.
Our Instagram handles and personal websites are linked in the podcast description.